Welcome to Offcode, the show where we ignore the cultural codes and have real and intriguing conversations regarding the Black community and ways we can move forward to human flourishing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Offcode. I am Monique Duson.
And I am Kevin Briggins, and we are glad that you all are back with us this week for part 2 of our discussion around my blog post.
Yeah. Yes, and just to remind people, we did part 1 last week. Your blog post is entitled, Dear Black People, Charlie Kirk Loved You. And, I've seen people respond to it. I saw one guy respond to it on Thaddeus Williams' page and was like, if this is not the definition of racism, but people, they push back. And I was like, go ahead and handle your business, folks, handle your business. So we're going to pick up from where we left off last week. Last week, we left off talking about your experience in your church in Augusta and how you guys really walked out the conversation of how do we do unity? How do we hear Black grievance or Black issues? And should we really strive for equity? All of those kind of things. And I think one of the last things you said was that the goal really is to change not just the culture of the church, but to actually kind of change the doctrine. And, to make sure that people are reading the Black books and not like Black Vodi Bakum, but Black James Cone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's, as I said, it's using Black grievance as a Trojan horse to push other things into it. Because, and I say Black grievance because the other side of that is also white guilt, right? And so using those two things to push ideas that are unbiblical. And that's why you saw, even like, especially in 2020 after George Floyd, you saw a lot of pastors listen to the wrong Black voices and start regurgitating some of this nonsense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and nonsense is exactly what it is. This is what you wrote about Black grievance. He said, the goal has been to use Black grievance to tear down the social structure of America, which has been heavily influenced by the moral principles and wisdoms of Christianity. So the Black grievance, which I would say is largely steeped in Marxism, the goal then is to tear down the Christian influence, which many people are going to call whiteness, but to really tear that down and make sure that we have what many people would call equity, but in reality is more just like a socialist or a Marxist framework. You think that am I getting you right?
I mean, 100% spot on. That's exactly what it is. I've heard someone talk about it recently in the saying that, it's just this idea that the government needs to do, and it's socialism, right? And so we've been told that that's what equity is. We've been told that's what justice is, and we must tear down the system of whiteness, which is typically, like I said, capitalism, the American, all the structures of the country, the cultural norms of the country, and you must tear these things down. And as I said last episode, the term whiteness is just something to lay on top of it for you to attack. Because if you just said, I want to tear down capitalism, or I want to tear down America, people would push back on you. But when you say, I want to
I don't know about that.
The vast majority of people. The vast majority.
Okay, so I see people all the time talking about we need to tear down America. We need to tear down capitalism.
Those are the radicals, right? It can't work with just the radicals. You got to get the average person to buy into the framework.
Yes,
right?
Yes, I hear you.
And so now instead of saying those things, you're saying we need to tear down whiteness. We need to tear down white supremacy. You stick some other label to it, and then you attack that label. You know,
Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you go on to say, this is why someone who promotes fundamental Christian values, such as marriage, being between a man and a woman, that there are only two genders, and I would say sexes, or that homosexuality is a sin and said to be promoting hate speech because those oppressive beliefs are rooted in whiteness. And then you put in parentheses Christianity. It is oppressive to alternative beliefs and lifestyles. To silence those promoting this hate speech is to fight for the oppressed. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, so you say this is why Charlie Kirk was murdered and why his murder was cheered and celebrated. And sadly, way too many Black people are cool with this because of how they've been trained to view the world. Like it just is so, you make it so plain. It's just, look, these things are seen as whiteness, but in reality, that Trojan horse might say whiteness on it, or it might say, it's really like a Trojan horse inside of a Trojan horse, because you get white supremacy, and then like I feel like the one inside that might be, you know, like whiteness, but in reality, what they want to attack is Christianity.
Yeah. And the whole white supremacy thing means, so we live in a Eurocentric culture where Europeans, whites, make up the vast majority of people in the country and therefore dictate the culture. So if you are for the cultural standard, you're saying that white people are superior. That is white supremacy, right? And so that is really what they're trying to attack when they do that. But yeah, these are the things that got Charlie killed. These are the things that were promoted as hate speech, and why so many people literally hated him to the point they cheered his death is because he stood for things that are basic Christian values and beliefs, but those beliefs have been called whiteness and hate speech, bigotry, sexism, misogyny, right? All of these words they attach to these ideas, those are the things they attach to Charlie Kirk and the things he was saying. And that's why the shooter said that he killed him, because he was spreading too much hate.
Yeah.
Right. And if anyone is a Christian, this is what was the reality. They would cheer your death too.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah. And so that's really, you want to understand what got Charlie Kirk killed. It wasn't his controversial take on DEI. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was the fact that he held to a biblical worldview on many of these topics, especially having to do with sexuality and gender and all these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the world, the culture, the progressive left views these things as oppressive.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you hold to these beliefs, you're deemed to be an oppressor. And even one person who claims to be a Christian said those exact words, said that, you know, some people view his death as getting rid of an oppressor, right? Mm-hmm. As if that was a valid viewpoint. It shows the brokenness of that lens, the brokenness of that worldview. That, and this is what one of the things I wanted people to take away is when you label things this way, and you view it as standing for the oppressed, you have then justified morally violence against those who are the oppressors. And you're simply an oppressor by the views you hold, right? Not that you are really oppressing anyone, but your views are oppressive. Therefore, you are an oppressor. And therefore, violence is justified against you as an act of liberation. And that is why they're trying to reframe these things as whiteness and white supremacy and bigotry and racism. They're trying to reframe these things so that they justify not only you being opposed to them, but you also coming with violence against them.
And they're reframing violence too, because like I remember growing up, and my mom did not condone me fighting, although I fought a lot, but she would say that you can only hit someone if they hit you first.
Yeah.
And so if I am defending myself, then it's okay for me to hit someone. And violence has now been redefined so that my words are actually a punch. I couldn't punch someone just because you said mean things to me or about me. But now your words are violence. Your speech is violence. And if you are disagreeing with me, that is violence.
Yes.
And people are justifying Charlie's murder based on what Charlie said, not the actual violence that he participated in.
No, because he was just doing dialogue. He was just debating people on college campuses. But it's not only the things that you say are violence. Remember, silence is also violence.
You got that
Right?
right.
So you can't be silent and you can't say the opposing viewpoint, which means the only acceptable thing is acceptance and affirmation. You must accept their way of viewing things, seeing things, or else Charlie Kirk. That is the message that was sent.
Truth and courage. Christians need a good dose of both in this current cultural moment. That's why you need to be at the 2025 Maven Conference. We are going to look at the anti-Christian culture that we're currently in and the unique challenges that it presents to us. The challenges of expressive individualism, the authority of the self, and how that dominates so much of our society. And then also critical theory, the ideas that permeate every institution, and families and students need to figure out how to navigate those challenges. So join us in Indianapolis on Saturday, November the 8th, where you'll get a good dose of both truth and courage to help you navigate this challenging world. Go to mavenconferences.com to register.
I appreciate, I'm going to skip down a little bit and talk about your, what I would call a plea to Black people. You say, wake up, Black people, and understand what has been done to us and who has done it. It wasn't the conservative Christians, although they were complicit in racism and oppression that destroyed our families and communities. And you're talking about historically, not necessarily today, just offering that as a little caveat. It was the liberal progressive who pushed liberation to us, not just liberation from Jim Crow laws, but liberation from whiteness. In the process, we liberated ourselves from the white man's religion and its sexual ethics. We rejected biblical marriage and embraced the sexual revolution. We rejected fathers in the home and embraced feminism because the Black woman decided she didn't need no man. The progressive liberal Marxists did to us what the KKK couldn't even dream of, but they did it to us while pretending to be our friends and smiling in our faces, and we bought it. We've been conditioned to believe that anyone who doesn't affirm our victim status and aid in our struggle, like the liberal progressive Marxists, is our enemy. And with that, we can just say goodnight, friends. What do you do with that? It's a whole lot. Like, it's a lot to hear. It's a lot to read and think through and process. And so I would encourage you, go to Center for Biblical Unity, click on the latest, and you'll see the blog tab. Click on blogs. Kevin's will be there. But let's unpack this a little bit, because this plea to Black people, I think, it's really the ethos of offcode and wanting to talk about the things that are keeping our community down. But you just say it so well in, like, wake up, like, understand what's happening. Why are you if you are, living this way and participating in ratchet behavior and thinking that all of these things is okay, what happened to you?
Yeah. And it's really, most people don't understand that what is viewed as Black culture today is not the norm. That is not the historical Black culture, right? Coming out of slavery, the early 20th century, Black people were had the highest marriage rates, very strong intact families. We were heavily rooted in the church, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not this liberation theology stuff or social gospel stuff, like actual biblical Christianity. And we had strong, healthy families and communities, right? And then, certain groups started to target us intentionally around the 1930s.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the 1950s, you've got this revolutionary type of fervor going on within the Black community.
Yes.
Yeah. And so now you got, and then, of course, that led into the civil rights movement in the 60s. And everything became about liberation, right?
Yes.
Sexual revolution, liberating from the Christian sexual ethic, right? Women being liberated from the need of a man and all of this type of stuff, and being liberated from the home and all of these liberation movements, right? And when you look at the decline of the Black community and Black culture, it is directly tied to all of those movements, right? Starting in the mid 60s, all the way, to the day. And you just saw seeing this very steep decline. And so essentially, like I said, the progressive did to us what the conservative, what the KKK could never dream of in terms of if the KKK was really like, we want the Black family destroyed and all this type of stuff, like the progressive left did this, and they did it under the guise of helping us, right? The war on poverty, you subsidize single motherhood, right? And it's like, oh no, we're being loving and charitable at the same time. You know what you're doing. You know you are subsidizing and encouraging women to have children without a man in the house, right? And you're also encouraging men to neglect their responsibilities because now the government's going to come in and take over. I forgot who I was listening to. It might have been Chad Jackson was talking about one of the goals was to bankrupt the social system, right? So you get so many people on it to where you bankrupt it, right? So you kind of create this forced socialist system, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the numbers shot up big time in numbers spending on what we call entitlements today. And it all started in the mid 60s. And so being the beneficiary of all of these government handouts, being the target of a lot of cultural movements, it led the Black community away from its roots that had made it strong, which was the church. Because even the church changed, liberation theology, the social gospel, the civil rights movement made the church very political, which it wasn't political before then. And so you just see all of these elements come in almost like a perfect storm. And, this is the 60th anniversary of the Moynihan Report that was written in 1965 that raised the alarm that there was a crisis in the Black community of single motherhood. Or children being born out of wedlock. And at that point, it was 25%. And that was a crisis. That was 1965. By 1985, it was near 75%. And it's been between 70 and 75% ever since then. So how do we go from, strong, intact families to all of a sudden we had this crisis by 1965. And then by 1985, it's a full blown, just epidemic. And then we've been stuck in this ever since. When did men start neglecting their families? When did women start determining they didn't need a husband or a man to raise their children? Like, where do these ideas come from? These are the questions we don't ask, right? Yeah. We just assume that this was just a natural, occurrence in culture, or we've been told that, this is just the remnant effects of Jim Crow and racism, which makes zero sense that none of this stuff was this way, during Jim Crow, during slavery, coming out of that. But from 1965 to forward, you got this steep decline. Like that doesn't add up to America got more racist. No, we know that. And so there has to be another explanation. And so, I want Black people to wake up to what the progressives have done to us. Stop thinking that they're our friends. And it was a great video I saw today of Malcolm X saying that exact same thing. Yeah, I was like, I didn't know me and Malcolm was like that, But Malcolm X was like, man, there's nothing worse than the white liberal. He called him. He said the fox is I'd rather be around the wolf than the fox, because the wolf, I see him coming and I know what he is, but the fox grins at you. You think it's your friend, but it's stabbing you in the back. Right. And that's what progressives were doing to Black people. They were using us at the same time, breaking down our culture, breaking down our communities. And this is why I'll say to that, too. The reason we know they were using us, and they still do it today, go look at all of your Black politicians, these progressive liberals. Look at your white progressive politicians. Right. Look at all the things they espouse in terms of feminism and, having children, abortion. Look at all this stuff. and then look how they themselves live. They live like conservatives, right? They're all married. They all have families, right? They don't have, they're living a different lifestyle in which they promote within our own community, right? And that's how you know that what they're doing and promoting, they know the ill effects of it because they don't live their own lives that way. It's kind of like the ones who will vote against, school choice and talk about how bad it is and all of this stuff. And then all of their kids go to private school.
Yep.
Right? It's like they are living the complete opposite way in which they have encouraged us to live. Right. And so I just want Black people to wake up and realize that they are using us, and they have used us to the point to where not only do we destroyed our own communities, we've broken down the family, but then we turn around and we blame someone else for it.
Right. You don't make me fan you, Black church. You make me fan you. Cause come on, as the young people would say, you cooking, Kevin, cooking. But here's the thing, and you said it well. You said they need us to be bitter, angry, and with a self-destructive culture so they can keep showing the disparities and how far behind we are as evidence of our oppression and whiteness. Here's the thing. So you started out talking about liberation, and the goal is, if we lay it all the way out, the goal just isn't Black liberation. I actually think these people could care less about Black liberation. The goal is revolution. The goal is to take us to that socialist place, which is what Marx really avowed, is this revolution. And so if we're thinking about revolution, you have to have a proletariat community who's going to be pissed off enough to bring you to the point of revolution. So they continue to wave this flag of liberation in front of your face and remind you that you are oppressed, remind you of whiteness, remind you of all these things so that you will be bitter and angry. They keep you on welfare. Why would people be mad at getting welfare when you getting something for free?
Yeah.
Because in scripture, people are meant to work. When we are not doing the things that God has created for us to do as human beings, as his creation, it goes against our nature. Working, using our hands, marriage, raising children. These are the things that we see in the in the creation mandate in Genesis. And so it's like, yes, we do, when things are too far off, I feel like we naturally see that something has gone wrong. But because we've also been sold this hoodwink and bamboozle that Christianity is the white man's religion, now we're continually searching all these different areas and facets and ways in order for us to get to this goal of happiness or of pleasure or whatever it is. But in reality, that's only found in God. And as long as we are away from God and doing things that are counter, there is going to be this bitterness, this anger, this self-destructive culture. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a bitterness, and it is a fragility to it as well. So
go ahead and use it.
Go ahead. There's something that happened today, whereas you had these guys that do the Freedom Tour. They go to the college campuses and do kind of what Charlie Kirk was doing, right? But they wear the red MAGA hats, and they went to an HBCU today. And
one in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, Tennessee State. And they had two signs. One said that DEI should be illegal, and the other said deport all illegals. Yeah, then it said, let's talk about it. That's what it said. Mm-hmm. Do you know that it basically caused a riot? Black people, the Black students on that campus, literally, first of all, they took the signs. They just started acting rowdy, and it got so rowdy and unsafe, they had to be kind of escorted off campus. Mm-hmm. And they're filming this whole thing, and the crowd is just rowdy. And it just shows how fragile we are, because the statement that was put out by Tennessee State talked about how, that the safety should never be compromised, and students shouldn't have to worry about their safety. And it was like, how were they unsafe?
Yeah.
They were unsafe from debating. They were, they were unsafe.
Violent.
Yeah. And it's like, we can't even handle someone with a different opinion wearing a red hat coming down and saying, let's talk about it, without us freaking out, literally freaking out. Right.
We are illogical and emotional.
So
many, it pushed that culture, that the younger generation culture, the current culture that we're seeing among many Black people, it's illogical and emotional.
Yes. And that's what we saw, because this is the thing. He had a sign that said DEI should be illegal. That's triggering. I can make the same sign that he would make it the same point would say, all racial discrimination should be illegal. Where's the outrage? Because that's the point of saying DEI should be illegal.
I don't know, because if you're a Kendi follower, then they would be up in arms too, because Kendi's whole point is that some discrimination is necessary and needed. Yeah. And if you are not discriminating, then you are racist.
Yeah. Yeah. The anti-racist thing. Yeah. I don't know how many of them hold there, or they just got triggered by seeing DEI. I
definitely think they probably got triggered by seeing DEI.
Yeah. So, but if he just had a sign that said racial discrimination should be illegal, no one would be up in arms. But it's just like the inability to think, the inability to challenge, to ask questions, to debate. That's just, it just shows how fragile we are. We got to talk about, we felt unsafe. Well, really?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, man, I need to check my Facebook, because I know I got a lot of notifications. I made a post about this, and I know I started a firestorm, but I hadn't looked at it.
How many the guys who came over to debate were white, huh?
Yeah.
Or were they black?
Yeah, 2 white guys wearing MAGA hats. And there's the thing, and they do this at various college campuses. They just decided to go to an HBCU, and I guarantee you, it was for some of the same reasons I decided to try to engage some of the, what we call, the Black, woke guys. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm like, you know what? Let me try to engage them in dialogue. And they went completely unhinged.
Yes.
Completely unhinged. Right? And these guys say, you know what? Let us go to an HBCU and let's try to have a conversation. Completely unhinged.
Do you think they would be more mad at us or more mad at the white guys? Because I kind of feel like we are the ones who traded in their eyes. And so it's almost like they would be more mad at us because we are seen as those who self-hate and hate our own people. Oh, no. Before we go on.
And then that's I put in the article, like, the white people are racist, but then we're self-hating, bootlicking, Uncle Tom Coons. Like, they would definitely be highly upset with us if we showed up. We would have to go in not showing our cards to get them to listen. If we went in and they knew, kind of like that event we did a couple years ago where they did their homework on us before we got there.
Yep.
And they were ready.
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
We would have to go in with them thinking that we couldn't let them know we were biblical conservatives or anything like that. And we would have to try to slowly kind of have that conversation and challenge them on some things. But if they knew that we were coming in from this perspective already, we would get the same treatment.
Yeah.
The training of the next generation of pastoral leaders is of vital importance. The problem is that seminary is oftentimes incredibly expensive. You have to uproot your family, you have to go to another place where you're not plugged into a local church. What BTS does is it provides a way for people to continue in their hometown, continue in their present ministry, gain the tools that they need for pastoral leadership, be equipped for the work of the ministry for the long haul, and do it inexpensively but substantively. I love that about Birmingham Theological Seminary.
Let's finish out your blog. There's just one or two more things I want to hit on. Actually, probably just one more thing. He said, my plea to my Black brothers and sisters whom I love is to wake up and stop letting them use you and understand that our ancestors survived the hardships of slavery and Jim Crow by their faith in God and their hope, not in earthly liberation from whiteness, but in the hope of their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. The more we've been ripped from this hope, the more hopeless we've become, and it has driven us to nihilism.
Yeah. I'll say nihilism is a deep sense of despair, of hopelessness, where nothing really matters what you do. There's no hope. And just so someone don't think that I'm making this up, Cornel West said that nihilism is the greatest threat to the Black community, right? Because when you have no hope, you give up. You don't try. You don't excel. You don't reach for anything. Right? Because, you know, whiteness is holding you down. The white man that's around the corner, the racist boogeyman and all this, you know, and you just have this sense of hopelessness. And so when you see people respond the way they're responding to things, yeah, they have this deep despair of hopelessness. And the way things are kind of portrayed to them, it kind of affirms what they already believe, right? And so that the system is against them, that the world, you know, like everything is just set up against them, and every single thing in the news or any incident is just a affirmation of that, and it just builds on itself, right? Until the point where you're just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And now you're just angry, and now you're just bitter, right? And the whole point is that's what they want you to be. Because people who are happy, people who are content, those people don't make very good revolutionaries. You know,
Right.
You don't rise up to tear down the structures that you're happy in, right? And so, yeah, they have to make you feel as if you're in some type of existential threat to yourself, you know, and the system is against you. And we saw that in 2020 with the George Floyd riots, right? This outward emotion over something that didn't involve you, you know, but you saw it as this great threat to you and your well-being because of this one thing that happened to this guy during that police interaction, right? And so, yeah, my plea to someone who wouldn't read the blog or think this is you know, BS. Like I said earlier, Malcolm X said the same stuff. You know, go back and look at Booker T. Washington's quote, you know, about the certain type of Negro that just wants to keep the ills of the Negro in the public, mainly so he can keep getting paid, right?
Race hustlers.
Yeah, race hustlers. And Booker T. Washington died in 1915.
Right.
He wrote about race hustlers before he died. You know, there's this sense of grievance pays. And there are certain people who want to keep you in a state of grievance because it keeps you down. You know, anyone that comes with a message of you can do it, you ever notice how those people are put down? Those people are, you know, told you're racist, you're this, you're Uncle Tom. The people who believe in you and say, hey, you can do it. These are steps you got to take, blah, blah, blah. You know, we can help you with this. They're like, they want you to disregard that person because they want you to stay in your current state. They want you to stay there and be angry and bitter. They want fatherless homes because they want the destruction that comes with it, right? And the only thing they can keep saying is, oh, it's racism and white supremacy. You know, vote for me, and we'll keep on fighting a good fight, you know, every 14 years, you know. And it keeps the same people in power. The same people benefit off of it. For instance, even within our Black entertainment circles, how many slave movies we gonna make?
Please.
How many struggle movies? I just call them struggle movies. How many struggle
Tyler
movies?
Perry is the king of the struggle movie.
I'm just saying, we are just constantly, given struggle.
Yeah.
And so that's all people see. That's what we ingest, and it's intentional. It is intentional. So.
Well, man, your blog was absolutely awesome. I think that many people will benefit from it. If you have not read Kevin's blog, go and check it out on the Center for Biblical Unity website. It is called Dear Black People, Charlie Kirk Loved You. You can find it by going to centerforbiblicalunity.com. Click on the latest and scroll down to blog. You will find it right there. Kevin, thank you so much for writing this and for putting into words what I think so many people, conservative Black people, wanted to put into words and to share. The blog has been shared so many times, been read by so many people. We're grateful for you for putting that together. And for all of you who are watching, make sure to go to centerforbiblicalunity.com and download our app, the Center for Biblical Unity app. You can stay abreast of what's happening with our travel schedule, speaking schedule, podcasts, blogs, all of that has been released. It's a great way to stay connected. You can also sign up for our weekly newsletter. We will not email you 1,000 times in a week, just once a week on a Sunday. And if this podcast has blessed you, helped you, please consider donating to Center for Biblical Unity at centerforbiblicalunity.com. And Kevin, I think that's it. Did I hit everything?
You did, but I also think we'll probably put the blog in the description. I'm guessing a link.
Good job. I appreciate that because, look, it's a lot to remember. And the fact that we have like a description area.
I know, but the fact that you knew how to navigate the website and tell people how to exactly get to it, I was impressed. But we'll have a link in the description.
Thank you, friend. You guys, thanks so much. And you know what? I before we sign off, I wanted to say something about Charlie Kirk's memorial. So you know that our ministry partner, Krista and I went to Charlie Kirk's memorial out in Phoenix. And there has been conversation online that it was just, this political rally, this white Christian nationalism and things like that. And that is not what it was at all. And so I just want to dispel some of those myths. The rally really did promote the gospel message. There was a salvation message. People were saved. People stood up to be able to start a relationship with Jesus. And there was actually a way for them to get connected with local churches or churches. I found some people who came in from like Ohio. There was a way for them to find a church in their area as well. They could get Bibles. This wasn't just you need this white Jesus and, all of that. But I know that that's what's being propagated among this in the social media arena.
But we call them the unregenerates.
Yes, the unregenerates, those who have put their blackness before Jesus, are saying these things, but it's not true. I would say every ethnic group, every skin tone was represented at this memorial, and it was awesome to see. The Black delegates, the conservative Black delegates, did show up. April Chapman was there. Virgil Walker was there.
Henry
there were
Morris.
Henry. You know what? I got to meet Henry Morris in person. I said, Jesus. So there were people who were there, but then there was just the regular, there was one section. I was like, maybe they all came together, but they was a Black church dressed. They were not influencers. They were up in the bleachers. And when I turned around and looked, it was hats and fans, and we came. we came through for Charlie.
Because
And
at the end
so-
of the day,
Yeah.
Charlie was a Christian
Yes.
who engaged the public in Christian debate,
Mhm.
right? The politics, people got so caught up in the politics. Charlie knew that what was good for America was a return back to God, but he knew that started at the individual level, right?
Mhm.
And he wanted more than anything is for people to know God and have strong families and love their country. That was it.
Yes.
And
Yep.
and that crosses any racial barrier, any racial line that is there. And that's why so many people resonated with Charlie and took his death kind of hard, because it's like that's what gets you killed in America today.
Yep.
You know?
It really is. So I just wanted to put that out there and combat some of the narratives that people like Jamar Tisby are putting out there. This was not a white Christian nationalist political rally. This was a worship of the one true Savior, Jesus Christ. No, not everybody did it the way I would do it, but many people there gave a gospel message and the hope of the gospel. And we also celebrated the beauty of our fabulous country. And so there was that. And with that, Kevin, I think we good. You good?
Good. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, then I'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye.